I'm a princess, and my father has asked me to choose a prince from among the heirs of various kingdoms for my marriage. A barrage of comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. Don't choose the White Tiger Kingdom's crown prince. He's making love with your cousin behind the rockery in the Imperial Garden. The Black Tortoise Kingdom's crown prince is even worse, seriously bad. I pondered for a moment, then couldn't help but ask the commenters, can you see me when I'm using the restroom? Countless fucks flew across the barrage. I leaned against the edge of the couch, my lips curled slightly. Stop the nonsense. Tell me, princess, among the heirs of various kingdoms, whose abs are the most palpable? Tomorrow is my father's birthday. Emissaries from various nations have gathered in Suzaku Kingdom to celebrate. Suzaku Kingdom once shared the world with the Black Tortoise, White Tiger, and Azure Dragon kingdoms, dominating the region. But now my father's indulgence in pleasure, his core corrupt, has left Suzaku Kingdom on the brink of collapse. To maintain respectability, my father considered a marriage alliance. I have always been known for my unrivaled beauty. Countries have long since sent my father marriage proposals. My father threw the invitations to me, his attitude unquestionable. Jiro, choose a marriage alliance of your own, as a birthday gift to my father. In reality, there are only two real options, the crown princes of Xuanwu and Baihu. Other countries simply cannot protect Suzaku. The problem is, I don't even know what either of them looks like. Just as I was fretting, several comments flashed before my eyes. Front row, enjoying the show. Hello, princess. Came to your channel specifically to watch the drama, it's so deserted here. Don't choose the Baihu crown prince. He's making love with your cousin behind the rockery in the Imperial Gardens. The Xuanwu crown prince is even worse off. Seriously bad. The comments were clashing furiously. I tried hard to suppress the involuntary curling of my lips. So what's written in the novel is true. As a child, I always loved visiting the library, and I stumbled upon a few time travel novels. My favorite was Jihu Yanyan's story collection. I could even recite the entire text. The words bullet comment live broadcast system. Those bizarre words were actually real. I was so excited. I forced myself to remain calm and said to my father, "This matter is of great importance. Allow me to consider it a little more." My father waved his hand impatiently, demanding a response tomorrow. After returning to the palace, I couldn't wait to dismiss my attendants. The barrage of comments continued. The princess's waist is so thin and soft. I really want to touch it. Does the princess's toilet smell good too? I pondered for a moment, then couldn't help but ask, can you see me when I'm using the restroom? The comments fell silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, countless "holy crap" erupted. He can see what we're sending. A chorus of "ah" sounded out, but no one answered my question. Then I'd find the answer myself. I ignored their shock and slowly strolled behind the screen. Undressing, bathing. The comments grew even more frantic. Why is it mosaicked? I want to see the sweet, soft princess. We're all sisters, what's wrong with showing us? Oh, I see. They can't see me using the restroom or bathing. I dried myself off and changed into comfortable pajamas. The comments returned to the marriage. In the original story, the princess chose the White Tiger Kingdom, right? Only after marrying into it did she discover this was the beginning of tragedy. Yeah, it's too far away. If something happens to my grandparents, I can't reach them. If it were you, I'd just pick someone with a great figure. Even if they're a jerk, I can still make up for it with my body. There's a time travel book that says all men are fake, only abs are real. I lazily reclined on the chaise longue, opened the marriage proposal again, and raised my lips slightly. Tell me, princess, among the heirs of various kingdoms, whose abs are the most touching? 2. Now the comments truly believed I could see them. After a brief moment of surprise, there were more lewd comments. "Aw, princess, you understand. I love you so much. It has to be the male lead. Xiao Yanji of the Qinglong Kingdom. How dare you? Princess, hurry up, dog waste. The ultimate fighting power. 8-pack abs guaranteed. Fuck, why didn't I think of matching the little princess with the male lead? That way, the male protagonist won't have to live out his life alone. Reconsideration. He's just so hard to win over, he's too aloof. The Crown Prince of Qinglong Kingdom, Xiao Yanji. I didn't expect the comments to mention him. I didn't dare to think. He's the god of killing, Xiao Yanji. Qinglong Kingdom's undisputed supremacy as the most powerful nation is likely due to him. Even Baihu and Xuanwu have to defer to Qinglong Kingdom's wishes. My father didn't even dare put him on the list of potential marriages. I recalled the comments I'd just seen. It seems I'm living in one of their male-oriented stories. The comments reveal the perspectives of different characters in the story. The male protagonist is Xiao Yanji. And I'm just a supporting character who's been mistreated. That's why my channel doesn't have many viewers, just those who enjoy beautiful women and abusive stories. The comments just now said that if I marry into the White Tiger Kingdom, my mother and my maternal family will be in trouble. Then, what if the marriage candidate is Xiao Yanji? Would the person who made the move be able to be cautious? Twisting a chilled grape between my fingers, I smiled slyly and said to the commentators. Then it's him. The books say you have immense powers, capable of anything. Help me capture Xiao Yanji, shouldn't it be difficult? The commentators cheered again. They immediately began teaching me the secrets of seducing men. The next day, envoys from various countries gathered in the main hall. Lights and decorations were blaring, and music and drums filled the air. The princes of various countries had all arrived. The princes of Xuanwu and Baihu were there for the marriage, but I wondered why Xiao Yanji was there too. I was just wondering how I'd met him. What a coincidence, wasn't it? Dressed in a silver red embroidered gown, my golden hairpin trembling slightly, I slowly entered the hall under the gaze of everyone. I could instantly feel everyone's amazed gazes. The White Tiger Crown Prince stood up in a frenzy, knocking over the wine glass in front of him. He was completely oblivious to the wine spilling all over him. His eyes fixed on me, his saliva practically dripping. Only Xiao Yanji remained unmoved. He sat high up in the VIP section, dressed in a dark robe, unassuming yet exuding a stern, commanding presence. Years of battlefield experience had imbued him with a stern, murderous aura. It was impossible to look directly at him, instilling fear. My father was still diligently pouring wine for him. I secretly encouraged myself, braving his invisible coldness as I approached him, saying, I've long heard of your highness's unparalleled bravery. You once slew a giant tiger with your bare hands in the remote northern borders. You are truly a peerless hero. Jiaro is filled with admiration. It's always good to start with some praise. Upon closer, I realized how incredibly handsome he was. Instantly captivated by his beauty, my fears vanished. Leaning slightly forward, her red lips parted, she continued in his ear. It's just, this princess has always had a small doubt in her heart. I heard that the belly of the giant snow tiger is as hard as rock and as tough as iron. I wonder if it compares to yours, a battle-hardened one. My gaze very slowly swept across the area between his narrow waist and abdomen. Compared to that abdomen, which one is superior? Which is inferior? You could hear a pin drop in the hall. Puff. Some envoy with a weaker mental endurance finally gave up and spat out a mouthful of wine. Then there was a burst of coughs, coughs, coughs. Shock was written on everyone's face. Then fear began to set in. Xiao Yanji's title of God of Death was well deserved. Everyone observed his movements cautiously, and my father's hands began to tremble with fear. The corners of Xiao Yanji's mouth twitched upward very slowly, and his voice was deep and magnetic. Princess! How dare you? 3. Xiao Yanji actually drank the wine I offered him in public. Everyone's expressions were complicated. You know, even though my father, the emperor, wanted to speak to him, he ignored them. No one mentioned the marriage again. Dare to compete with Xiao Yanji for a woman. Isn't that crazy? I'm also satisfied with this outcome. I don't have to open a blind box to marry, and I can still stay in Kyoto to protect my mother and my maternal family. After the palace banquet, the diplomatic corps left the capital. Xiao Yanji left too. To pretend I had a relationship with Xiao Yanji, I went into husband-chasing mode. Under the guidance of the barrage teacher, I came up with all kinds of lewd words. First, a love letter a day. I wonder if your highness will dream of me tonight. If so, my life will not be in vain. There are many beautiful things in this world, but none of them make my heart beat faster than your wife. Some say I'm too quick to fall in love, but it's really just that your highness is so lovable. Then, of course, comes the gift giving. I've collected rare flower species and precious treasures from all over the world. I even had my grandfather find me a snow-white pony to give it to me. It's named Sijuan, and it has a tag around its neck that reads, "My master says she loves you so much." There was no response from Xiao Yanji. But I consoled myself with the fact that at least he didn't refuse. Not refusing meant more. My personal savings were almost gone. For this reason, I even went to my father to apply for husband-chasing funds. Determined to gain access to the Qinglong kingdom, my father gritted his teeth and approved it. Life must go on. The comments were already starting to sound pessimistic, urging me to give up. I also became a little depressed. That day I leaned against the window, weakly poking at the peonies in the vase. I asked the maid, "Do you think he thinks this princess is too promiscuous? Or is he actually a homosexual?" Before the maid could answer, news suddenly arrived. The old emperor of Qinglong Kingdom has passed away. After a period of turmoil and struggle, Xiao Yanji officially ascended the throne. I was scared. It's okay for me to be shameless for a beautiful woman. To flirt with the ruler of Qinglong Kingdom. This is a life-threatening act. To live a good life, I quickly stopped my suicidal behavior. I stopped writing love letters and collecting gifts. It was a bit strange to stop all of a sudden. It just so happened that my private treasury was almost empty from my pursuit of a husband. I went out for a stroll. I took a look at my properties. Without a man, I could pursue my career. My shops were all located in the bustling areas of Kyoto, selling clothes, jewelry, and rouge specifically for girls. The shop's decor was magnificent, but it was empty. The comments immediately started offering advice. "Princess, do a live stream. Sell your merchandise. You're the most stunning princess in the world. Your face is your best brand. Hold a banquet. Invite those with tons of money to show for it." The comments buzzed with chatter. I immediately did what I said. Flower viewing banquets, garden parties. Sent out invitations to princes, nobles, and the ladies of wealthy families. I was responsible for dressing them in the items from my shop. The maids were there selling the merchandise. When people are shameless, money pours in. Not only were they given discount vouchers, but they were also given VIP jade plaques. At the suggestion of the comments, I even held several events specifically for the wives of officials and nobles. These people had the money and the time. Sure enough, before long, I was making a killing. I was so busy I completely forgot about Xiao Yanji. One day, tired from inspecting the shops, I went to eat at Zuixianju, Kyoto's largest restaurant. This restaurant specializes in Qinglong Kingdom cuisine, which was perfectly suited to my taste. Best of all, they not only provided beautiful women to accompany me for drinks, but also handsome men. I ordered 5 of them right away. One danced, one sang, 2 massaged my back, and the most handsome one poured wine and served me food. Just right. The man picked up a piece of shed belly and carefully removed the bones. Just as he was about to feed me, I heard merchants whispering in the private room next door. The accent was Qinglong Kingdom. After our new emperor ascended the throne, he reduced taxes, built water conservancy projects, and even resettled refugees on the border. Compared to this Suzaku kingdom, the man lowered his voice, all the way here, there were countless starving people. Only Kyoto still pretends to be peaceful. Another side, Your Majesty's governance is impeccable, but my brother's service at court is like walking on thin ice every day. Lately, Your Majesty's temper has become increasingly unpredictable, his moods fluctuating. That low mood during court. TSK, my brother's hair has fallen out in the last 2 weeks. I paused, holding my wine glass. Xiao Yanji. I've been deliberately avoiding news about him lately, rarely even checking the comments. I didn't expect to hear about him here. Why is his temper so bad? He can still tolerate my teasing. Just as I was distracted, the owner of Zuixianju respectfully led a calm, middle-aged man into the room. They were slightly stunned by the scene in the private room. Then, as if nothing had happened, he acted as if nothing had happened. Princess. The middle-aged man bowed to me, his manner unusually respectful. My name is Shinhong, and I'm the owner of this restaurant. I've long admired your grace, Princess. To have the pleasure of meeting you today is truly a great honor. He placed a box, faintly chilling, on the table. A subtle yet remarkably clear coiled dragon emblem was branded on the corner of the lid. I happened to recognize it was the mark of an item used by the Qinglong Kingdom's royal family. Only Xiao Yanji can use it. This is a rare fruit from the Nanling Mountains that our restaurant has recently acquired, called lychee fruit. If the princess doesn't mind, consider it a novelty. He looked calm. And my heart skipped a beat. In a previous love letter to Xiao Yanji, I'd mentioned, I've heard there's a fruit from the Nanling Mountains called lychee, sweet as nectar. I wonder if I'll ever get to try 1 or 2 in my lifetime. It was just a whim, and I almost forgot. Xiao Yanji actually remembered. Glancing at the young men around me, still flirting, I felt a momentary embarrassment. Shinhong lowered his voice even further, with a tacit understanding. If the princess needs anything in the future, please come to the restaurant to find me. He paused, his tone profound. If the princess has any letters to take to Qinglong country, you can also give them to me. With that, they quietly retreated. They also took the young man with them. My heart warmed slightly. Is he asking for a love letter for Xiao Yanji? After so much unrequited wishful thinking, I actually got a response. Smelling the delicate fragrance of lychees, my passion for pursuing my husband reignited. The comments were even more excited than I was. Ha ha ha, the crematorium is booked for chasing his wife. He loves it so much. Shinhong must have done this on purpose. The future mistress invited a bunch of little puppies, ha ha ha, and he couldn't help himself. Little princess, look at the hero. He's so pitiful. His father just died, and his mother died yesterday. There's no one left in this world who truly loves him. It's true. I just switched to the hero's perspective. Little princess, please go to the border to see him. He promised his mother the queen that he would bury her ashes in Yunzhou, and now he's gone there with them. Dead parents and a broken man. Now is the time he needs you most. I stood up suddenly. A surge of bitterness and heartache ignited within me, along with endless self-blame. What was he going through when he claimed to love him, yet got angry over the smallest of things? His father had passed away, he was fighting for power with his brothers, and his mother passed away. Okay, I'll go find him. I whispered to the commenters. On the way back to the palace, the commenters suddenly multiplied. No longer the sporadic few they had before. Even the way they spoke was different. Even with malice and mockery. The most noticeable thing is that many people are furiously posting. Xiao Yanji has his childhood sweetheart with him to Yunzhou, don't be a third party. 5. Yunzhou is the hometown of Xiao Yanji's mother. It's not far from the border where my grandfather was stationed. I'd been there as a child. The barrage of comments was already clamoring. I ignored it and headed straight for the imperial study. My father is a suspicious person by nature. I needed a perfect excuse to leave the palace. My grandfather was the veteran General Dingbei, a formidable figure on the frontier, commanding an army of 200,000. He had recently submitted a series of memorials, reporting that the border troops hadn't received pay in a long time. Food and fodder were extremely scarce, barely enough to last even 10 days. But Northwest One in the court cared. No matter how many times I asked, there was no answer. Empty treasury became a universal excuse. Fortunately, I had prepared for a rainy day, and had recently saved up a considerable amount of money. I had also secretly stockpiled a large amount of food. In fact, the gifts I had given Xiao Yanji were all worthless trifles. I embezzled most of the husband-chasing funds my father had begged for. Now, I can help my grandfather with his urgent needs. I told my father I was willing to donate all my private treasury funds to finance the army. The condition was that I personally escort the troops. My father said he'd consider it. After a few days, he suddenly summoned me to the palace, his face a rare expression of kindness. "Jiaro, the new year is approaching, and your grandfather is already very old. This time, you will take the trouble to personally escort the food and fodder to the border, and bring him back to the capital, so that our family can have a reunion." I was delighted. But then, a strong sense of unease washed over me. As I looked up, the comments were scrolling wildly. The story of abuse begins. I love the abuse of the little princess and her family. I switched from another channel to watch this. I love abuse. The more tragic, the better. Don't spoil it, she can see the comments. We can just speak English, there's no way she'll get it. There were so many of them, my head was a little swollen just looking at them. There were even a lot of Western words. I finally managed to find a few useful comments among the countless comments. It's over, it's over. The general's mansion is doomed. His achievements have overwhelmed the emperor. Don't let the old general return to the capital. The emperor is ready to abandon him. Yesterday, a lackey went to the emperor and said, "If you really marry Xiao Yanji, the old general is your grandfather and commands a large army." What if? The last comment was like a poisoned ice needle, instantly piercing through all the hypocrisy. I see. I understand everything. A cold rage shot from my feet to my head, chilling every limb. It wasn't just because of my father's ruthlessness. It was also because of the comments that had accompanied me for over a month. To see me tortured according to the original storyline, to see my grandfather murdered, they've misled me in every possible way. The most common comment is, "Send the old general back soon. Your mother and grandmother miss him." This comment has become so numerous that it's drowning out all the other comments. Are they deliberately misinforming me? My father is still waiting for my reply. His rare patience. Since he's unkind, you can't blame me for being unjust. To avoid his notice, I hid my slightly trembling hands in my wide sleeves. I calmly promised, "Your son obeys." Then I changed the subject, a touch of just the right amount of worry. "But, Your Majesty, Jiaro's private treasury is meager. I'm afraid it will be difficult to gather the necessary food and fodder. Can you start a fundraising campaign today? The ministers in the court, receiving the emperor's salary, should set an example. After all, a secure border is the foundation of our Suzaku nation's stability." I know my father's character well. As long as it didn't affect his fundamental interests, he would definitely agree to such a cost-free offer. The next day, with my father's tacit approval, I led the Imperial Guards and launched a direct attack on the corrupt officials who favored me, the cricket. We swiftly ripped off a large sum of money from them. We euphemistically claimed that I had donated everything, and for the sake of the nation, you should also donate. I returned with a bountiful harvest. The proceeds piled up like a mountain. I exchanged them all for food and fodder. Adding to the food and fodder I had secretly prepared, it was enough to sustain an army of 200,000 for over 6 months. 6. Everything was ready, and I went to pay my respects to my mother. Her palace was unnaturally quiet. A thick, indissoluble smell of medicine, mixed with a stale, cold air, hit me. My mother was my grandfather's only child. My father had married her to intimidate my grandfather and keep him on guard at the border. Mother knew all too well and never competed for favor, leaving the palace deserted and cold. Today was unusually cold. I quickened my pace and entered the palace. She leaned against the couch, her eyes hollow and her face pale, as if drained of all energy. Only her maid, Xiao Chui, stood by. Seeing me, Xiao Chui burst into tears. The Empress. Xiao Chui's voice was hoarse, and she trembled with the trembling of someone who had survived a catastrophe. Thanks to the princess's reminder, I've been keeping an eye on the herbs. The tonic the Emperor sent this morning was adulterated. If she'd drunk that bowl, the Empress would have suffered severe lung damage and wouldn't have survived 2 weeks. Xiao Chui is well versed in pharmacology, and I'd specially arranged her to be by mother's side. The comments in the comments had given me some clues. I'd made preparations in advance. I hadn't expected my father to be so heartless. I had held on to a last glimmer of hope for him. I hoped the comments were deliberately misleading me. I hoped my father truly only appreciated grandfather's years of hardship guarding the frontier, and had summoned him back, so that he could enjoy the joys of family. Now, over that broken chair, that ridiculous suspicion, he'd actually murdered mother. Just to ensure I could bring grandfather back. If mother were seriously ill, grandfather, who always loved her, would have rushed back no matter what. What awaited grandfather? Looking at mother's lifeless eyes. She, once radiant and full of life, was now emaciated, her heart dead. I clenched my fists tightly, letting my nails dig into my palms. Finally, with determination, I ordered. Xiao Chui, guard the door. Don't let anyone in. A deathly silence fell upon the hall. Mother, I said, my voice remarkably clear, with a resoluteness that cut off all avenues of retreat. Rebellion. The comments went completely wild, mixed with even more enthusiastic greetings for my family. Fuck. No, I thought the princess was just trying to persuade the old general not to return. I thought protecting mother was impressive. I'm still on the 1st floor, has the little princess already climbed to the 72nd? I have a terrifying thought, was the princess hoarding food and fodder planning a rebellion? I smiled at the comments before me. A rare challenge. Didn't you say you wanted to see my grandfather return? Okay, I'll show you. Just lead an army of 200,000 and fight back. 7. It's decided and we'll do it. First, make arrangements for mother. Once I leave, she'll fake her death from a serious illness. Most of my men remain in Kyoto on standby. Once they successfully persuaded my grandfather to rebel, they would take my grandmother's family and the families of the key border soldiers away. The journey to the border is long, and these mountains of food and fodder are sure to attract many eager eyes. Especially those corrupt officials I forced to donate a few days ago. They're all waiting to see my performance and get some extra cash. Night was approaching. I went to Zuixianju for dinner again. In the private room, the handsome young men were summoned as usual. But a group of beautiful girls were waiting. No, where are your young servants? Princess, the leading girl said, looking uneasy. They've taken leave today. All of them? The leading girl, her forehead sweating, muttered a low hum. The comments were filled with laughter. Taking leave? It must be Xiao Yanji who's jealous. He's withdrawing everything. Ha ha ha. I can smell the jealousy even through the screen. Your Majesty is mighty. My male protagonist has this side to him. I have no regrets in my life. The comments have returned to their former harmonious state. Most of them, impressed by my courage, clamored to join me in rebellion. Those who wanted a more abusive plot, realizing it couldn't be reversed, left. And some said, "Since I'm here, I'm here." After I finished my meal, Shinhong appeared on time. I made my request without further ado. Since it was his order, I should tell him anything I needed. The road is getting rough, so I'd like to borrow some extra help from Boss Shin to escort me. By the way. I paused, tapping the table with my fingertips. And a few skilled secret guards to protect me. Shinhong raised an eyebrow, his smile widening. "Princess, forgive my bluntness, but you need troops to escort the grain, but are you sending it to General Gu? And General Gu's army is heading for our Qinglong Kingdom's territory. Aren't you afraid that we'll just intercept the grain?" Hearing his frank words, I actually breathed a sigh of relief. I waved my hand dismissively. "Boss Shin, you're joking. Qinglong Kingdom is so powerful, why would they care about such a small thing?" I took a sip of tea and continued, "Besides, if Suzaku Kingdom were lucky enough to be conquered by Qinglong Kingdom, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. As citizens of your country, we can still have enough food and clothing, unlike the Suzaku Kingdom right now." I couldn't bear to talk about Suzaku Kingdom's current plight. "Your Highness, you are truly a wonderful person." Shinhong pulled a black iron token from his sleeve and handed it to me. "The troops are already prepared, all elite, and ready for action at any time." 8. The convoy set off immediately. We hadn't gone far before I dealt with the spies my father had placed in the caravan. Just 100 miles from Kyoto, the music around me was replaced by wailing. Gradually, even the wailing faded, transforming into a black and white silent film. The roadside scenes were horrifying. A child wrapped in a tattered blanket sat by the roadside, frozen like a corpse. His eyes were still open, clutching a ball of frozen mud, his mouth cracked in a smile. A mother sifted through the corpses, uncovering each frozen body until she found her son's tiny body. She didn't cry or scream, simply wrapped it in a straw mat and slowly carried it away. 3 more people sat numbly in a circle, pots and pans placed in the middle. I could tell immediately that the meat in the pot wasn't pork, not lamb, but... My stomach churned. I, a princess, clad in fox fur, rode aloft, guarded by 3,000 elite soldiers, watching this mortal hell. The magnificent banner representing the princess's residence fluttered in the air. Passers-by could only stare in amazement. The irony was even greater. I was dragging behind me enough food and fodder to save countless lives, yet I was powerless to do anything. Thankfully, I received a letter from my grandfather. He said there was no shortage of food and fodder at the border, and petitioning the court for it was merely customary, intended to allay the concerns of the court officials and my father. My grandfather told me to dispose of the food and fodder as I pleased. I immediately ordered it to be distributed along the route. But only those who still had a conscience were to be saved. Some were no longer human, and needed no salvation. Even the guards breathed a sigh of relief upon receiving my order. The refugees and civilians were naturally grateful for the food. But I knew it would only provide them with a temporary sustenance, and would soon be exhausted. As we approached the border, our food and fodder ran low. But the refugees along the road also gradually vanished. In their place were scattered cultivated fields, lightly covered with snow. Beneath the border wall, neatly arranged military farms stood. Smoke rose from villages surrounding the camps. The air was no longer filled with despair, but with the tenacious warmth of life. My grandfather had been waiting for me outside the city gates. He no longer looked the brave warrior I remembered galloping across the battlefield. He had aged considerably, his beard like frost, but his back remained straight. He led me into the tent and dismissed his attendants. Just as he had done in childhood, he poured me a glass of wine. "Drink something to warm you up." I looked at his white hair, and the words I had been preparing to address him emotionally and logically suddenly got stuck in my throat. Roa, tell me. There are no cowards in our Gu family. His words finally softened the nerves I'd been bracing myself for all this time, and my nose felt sore. It was like I'd finally found support. I told him everything that had happened recently. My father's suspicion and murderous intent had narrowly escaped my mother's death. Grandpa, if you don't believe me, I've found someone who looks like you. They can impersonate you and return to the capital to see if there's an ambush along the way. I was still trying to convince my grandfather, but he suddenly blurted out. I believe you. His deep eyes fixed on me, his tone firm. Roa, you already have a plan. I took a deep breath, knelt down, and said, Grandpa, let's rebel. I thought my grandfather would be the hardest to convince. For my Suzaku nation, he abandoned his wife and daughter to guard the border. He stayed there his entire life. His loyalty is evident to all. But I forgot that his loyalty lay with the people of his country, not a foolish emperor. Though old, he wasn't stubborn. To ensure the people on the border had enough food and clothing, he had even concealed it from the capital, allowing his soldiers to cultivate wasteland and secretly trade with the Qinglong kingdom. After hearing my proposal, Grandpa didn't hesitate. Okay, let's rebel, he said. 9. It was late at night. I sat alone on the battlements of the city wall, gazing towards Yunzhou. I planned to go to Yunzhou tomorrow to find Xiao Yanji. Whether the previous comments were meant to sow discord or to prevent me from changing the original plot, I didn't care. I had a mouth I could ask for my own advice. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew beside me. A figure leaped up and landed steadily beside me. Startled, I put my hand on my sword. I looked closely. It was Xiao Yanji. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. I couldn't tell if it was out of fear or joy. Why are you here? I lowered my voice, looking around warily. This is the Suzaku camp. We'll be in trouble if we're discovered. Xiao Yanji's shoulders were still frosted. He was still cool and handsome, though a little more tired. He sat down beside me nonchalantly. A secret guard reported that your father has learned of the border food shortage. He has secretly ordered the prefectures along the way to mobilize heavy troops. Once you set out for the capital, we will stop at nothing to kill you. When I didn't respond, he turned to look at me. His deep eyes reflected the stars, and also my silly smile. I wanted to hug him. I'm so happy today, I said. He looked a little puzzled by my irrelevant answer. He then assumed that I didn't believe what he said before, and was trying to persuade him. I believe you. I believe you. I hurriedly said, it's just because I'm so happy you came to see me. Hearing my words, Xiao Yanji's tense expression subtly relaxed. He pulled out a black iron military token engraved with a coiled dragon from his bosom. This will mobilize the 8,000 dragon scale guards I've stationed at the border. They're my loyal soldiers, unparalleled in combat, and will protect you and your grandfather to the death. He paused, motioned for me to take it, and continued. The token Shinhong gave you commands all spies, secret agents, strongholds, and banks within Suzaku. You feel free to mobilize them. His voice was low, as if he were telling me something truly extraordinary and ordinary. This practically handed over all of his Azure Dragon Kingdom's sharp claws and spies in Suzaku to a princess from an enemy nation. Xiao Yanji. I looked up, gazing into his deep, unfathomable eyes. Aren't you afraid? I'll turn my sword around and use your troops to attack the Qinglong kingdom. Xiao Yanji looked at me. The flames from the city walls danced in his eyes, and a faint, yet remarkably clear, smile slowly spread across his face. I believe you, too. His voice was steady and resolute. Faced with such beauty, I couldn't help but kiss him. We were both stunned. Jiaro. What are you doing? My grandfather's voice rang out from behind, frightening me so much that I almost fell off the city wall. Thankfully, Xiao Yanji pulled me back. I stepped forward to block the way. In front of Xiao Yan. Grandpa, Grandpa, he. Xiao Yanji gently patted my shoulder. It's okay. The old general knows I'm coming. Me? You. Does this count as treason? No, we're all rebels, why would we betray our country? My grandfather, still angry, snorted. His lieutenant explained to me that we haven't fought the Qinglong kingdom for a long time. Every previous battle left corpses strewn across the fields and rivers of blood. Add to that the court's persistent withholding of rations, and the soldiers' lives became increasingly difficult. It was Xiao Yanji who approached my grandfather and signed a gentleman's agreement. Rather than recklessly expending resources and incurring unnecessary casualties, it was better to stop the fighting and recuperate. The soldiers and civilians on the border had to survive. They cultivated the fields, and Xiao Yanji sent water wheel designs and new varieties of water. The soldiers no longer had to worry about their heads being pinned to their belts. It can also support the growing number of people who seek refuge there. I understand. No wonder the closer to the border, the more vibrant the area. Princess, you don't know, the deputy general lowered his voice, seemingly seeking credit. Your Majesty wanted you to marry, and it was this old general who begged Lord Xiao to come to Kyoto and rescue you. Me? No wonder. I was just saying it was my father's birthday, so why would Xiao Yanji honor me with a visit? Turns out it was my grandfather who asked him to come. My grandfather looked even angrier, clearly thinking back to my audacious behavior. His gray beard bristled in anger as he glared at Xiao Yanji. He snorted again. How could I have known I would have let a wolf into my house? Xiao Yanji looked calm and composed, bowing to my grandfather with a composed demeanor. I was the only one who noticed that his ears were red. 10. Before setting out on the expedition, I secretly sent a message to the capital, requesting that my grandmother, my mother, and the relatives of several of our commanders be brought out and transferred to a safe place. With the token Xiao Yanji had given us, our efforts were even more efficient. In the border camp, banners fluttered. My grandfather donned his armor, mounted his equally aging steed, and gazed down at his fellow soldiers, who had emerged from the wind and sand below. His voice was low and firm. Has anyone among you ever envied the Qinglong kingdom? The soldiers glanced at each other, no one daring to speak. After a while, they began to raise their hands. My grandfather continued. I know that some of you have sisters who have married there, some brothers who have gone off to farm, and some parents who have changed their nationality. Why? Because there's enough food to eat. There's hope. My grandfather turned and looked at me. Jiaro, the rebellion isn't for me, nor for you. I'm old and I don't care who sits on the throne. My request is simple, these soldiers who follow me stay alive. They can marry and have children. Their families can have enough food and clothing. The soldiers below were all deeply moved, some even secretly weeping. It was such a simple wish. But it was so difficult. Then I heard my grandfather shout. If you are willing to fight to the death, I will fight again. Fight. 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 The soldiers' response echoed in the air, resounding through the valley. 200,000 troops, divided into 3 groups, surged out of the border like a tide, heading straight for Kyoto. The journey was surprisingly smooth. The cowardly officials abandoned the city and fled upon hearing that General Gu was leading a large army. The quick-witted ones surrendered immediately and cooperated voluntarily. Some still tried to offer some resistance, but the gates were secretly opened by the civilians inside. Because I had distributed food and fodder along the way, saving countless civilians. They saw the flags of the princess's residence from afar and spontaneously organized a rebellion against the court. I finally understood what it meant to win the hearts of the people and conquer the world. Every time we recaptured a city, we quickly implemented new policies, incorporating existing ones from the Qinglong kingdom. We reduced taxes, opened granaries to help the people, recruited refugees, reclaimed wasteland and established settlements, and stabilized prices. The most terrifying thing was the granaries of these dignitaries and government officials were overflowing, yet they refused to share any with the refugees. As we approached Kyoto, civilians lined the official roads, burning incense and kowtowing. "The princess is here. The old general is finally here. We finally have a way out. We have food." They cheered. These voices spread like fire, growing stronger and stronger. Seeing my father again, he was mad. He felt no guilt or remorse towards us. He cursed. He called me unfilial and my grandfather disloyal. He only regretted not having killed me and my grandfather sooner. 11. I did not ascend the throne. I established Suzaku as a special economic zone within Qinglong. Politically, it had a high degree of autonomy, but economically, it had key support. I learned the name from a comment on a bullet screen. In front of all the civil and military officials, I solemnly and coquettishly begged Xiao Yanji for favors. "Your Majesty, our Suzaku needs a lot of work, and people's lives are difficult. You must give us your full support. Allow us money, send capable officials, open trade routes, and provide us with technology. Suzaku urgently needs these things right now. You know." The ministers below twitched their lips. My grandfather glared at me helplessly. Xiao Yanji sat at the head of the table and listened patiently. "Well, whatever you say. I struck while the iron was hot, then you can't interfere in politics either. The appointment and dismissal of officials, the revision of laws, and the management of people's livelihoods are all decided by us." His eyes were gentle. "You have the final say." The corners of the mouths of the civil and military officials twitched even more violently. After leaving court, I pestered him, asking, "Why are you so nice to me?" He hesitated, pursed his lips, and finally spoke. "We've known each other since childhood." I looked up at him, a smile in my eyes. "I know." Now it was his turn to be stunned. I stood on tiptoe to touch his head, just like I did when we were little. "You were so handsome, of course I remember you. When I was little, I went to the border to visit my grandfather. Xiao Yanji happened to be traveling with my mother to Yunzhou to visit my grandmother. He was curious about what Suzaku Kingdom looked like, so he sneaked out alone. I'm naturally sociable, especially with attractive people, and I have a particularly good patience. I remember him then, like a small ice cube. No matter how I spoke to him, he ignored me. I had just found a few time travel novels in the library, and I began to tell him the stories. When he heard about hybrid rice, water wheels, and Xiangyang's reforms, his eyes lit up. But he was later found by the Queen Mother's men and taken back to the Qinglong Kingdom. He looked at me intently and asked, "Do you remember your wish back then? When you were a child, you said you wished for the world to be prosperous, for all people to be well fed and warm, for all things to be equal, and for the people to sing of peace. Now it can come true." 12. Since I decided to rebel, I rarely read the comments. It's boring to keep cheating. You have to fight for your own destiny. But they still feel like old friends to me. Occasionally, I'll flip through their posts to see them gossip and complain about government decrees. Or maybe they argue about how to best match my hairpin and clothes every day. That day I opened the comment section. They were discussing the original ending. I just realized in the original plot, the hero didn't appear on the Suzaku Emperor's birthday. Yeah, so the princess married off to the White Tiger Kingdom, and was tortured to death. After the princess's tragic death, the hero annihilated the White Tiger Kingdom. And after the old general's family died, he annihilated the Suzaku Kingdom. Don't you think there's something strange about that? Hey, in the original plot, the hero unified the world, so what? He still died alone. Don't be sad, my dears. You have the little princess to keep you company now. I looked in Xiao Yanji's direction. The man under the pavilion was leaning against the railing. The sunlight filtered through the branches, casting a gentle, quiet light on him. As if sensing something, he looked up at me. The corners of his lips curled slightly. The comments exploded. Ah! My baby is laughing again.